Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today again for Innerviews. I so appreciate each and every one of you who watches my shows. And today I'm very excited to be chatting with Karien Pitout. Karien, please will you tell us a little bit more about your business and why you started it?
Hi, Melanie. Thank you for the opportunity to expose your viewers to what I do. Right, so I am a parenting coach. The company's name is C3 Parenting, C, the number 3 Parenting. It stands for Conscious, Creative, Connected Parenting. And basically what I do is I help parents really set themselves and their kids up for success. A lot of parents have certain sets of tools that is covered and given to them over generations. But those tools are outdated in parenting, and with the world changing and the expectations on parents changing so much, my job is to actually give parents tools to parent their kids for the new world that their kids are growing up in, because we were raised for a world that actually no longer exists. So a lot of the parenting tools that we have in our tool belt just is ineffective. It doesn't work, and unfortunately, historically and scientifically, can cause a lot more damage than good.
Mm, mm. I'm pretty certain that your skills are much needed during this time. I'm just thinking I grew up in a pretty old-fashioned framework, and I know that the tools my parents used are almost useless today.
It is actually. Um, and I think one of the biggest challenges regarding conversations like this, while you talk about, you feel that the tools that your parents used is useless. Parents do the best job they know how to do, and with the experience and their life skills, and if you put all of that together, it either is a recipe of generational hurt and failure that comes through,
Mm,
or someone that stops the bus and say, okay, you know what, this is no longer working. The same way with anything in life. If we've always done a thing a certain way and we don't ask why it has been done that way, the
mm,
effectiveness also loses its power. I always tell my parents this, and always a little bit of tongue in cheek, this little analogy. This woman fries the boerewors, but what she does is she like breaks off a little piece of the wors, puts it one side, then fries the big piece, and then after she's cooked the big piece, she puts the small piece in. And her husband asked her, but why are you doing it? It's like, no, but that's how my mom told me to do it.
mm.
And so you need to ask my mom. So he went to his mother-in-law and said, hey, why are you doing this? And she's like, oh, well, that's how my mom taught me how you fry vors. You need to ask my mom. And he went to the grandma and it's like, why do you guys cook the vors with this big piece and a small piece? And she's like, oh my word, are they still using the too small frying pan? And that is
I love
and that
that.
is and that is so much of our generational information that we have on how we do things. We don't know why, and we don't stop to ask why, and we don't stop to, are you still using the too small frying pan, or do you have a
Mm,
bigger frying pan but still using outdated cooking methods?
mm,
What is the way that you engage with your kids? So no parent is a failure, and I think that is one of the biggest hearts that I have. No parent is a failure. You cannot do something in a certain way if you don't know how to do it.
mm,
You
mm,
can't
mm.
execute certain things if you, sorry, I'm gonna have to edit that out. If you can't get those things together. And so a lot of parents have a knee-jerk reaction. The moment a parenting coach steps onto when they have a critical question, they're like, ooh, help me with this, or let's work through this. And the moment we actually start pushing at certain things, you start realizing that parenting is a journey of parenting yourself before you parent your child.
Yes.
Because I need to understand where I'm coming from, what is working, what is effective, what is ineffective. And it's not a diss to the previous generations
Mm,
if we change the way that we parent. Some of them do take
mm,
offense, a lot of
mm,
them do,
mm.
but we have to move forward and we have to change things the same way that people moved from horse carts to cars to faster vehicles. That's the same thing that we do with the parenting journey, is we go through certain steps and we learn new things as science progresses as well.
Mm, mm, absolutely. Now, Karin, I have a friend who always says to me that guilt is a mother's middle name. How would you respond to that?
I knew we were going to go that direction. All right, so I used to joke. I said there's two things after you give birth that leaves the delivery room when they take the placenta out: your dignity and guilt walks in. And the irony is, first of all, no, you're not losing your dignity during birth, no matter which way of birth you participated in. It was just a joke because I personally felt very vulnerable after giving birth, and everybody just walking in and out of the room. So that's just my personal joke. But the whole guilt thing is there's a lot of pressure on, not just on moms, but on parents as in large. Yes, on due to the way that society is structured, unfortunately, we have a lot more pressure on the female gender to fulfill a certain role. Like we have to work and we have to cook and we have to clean and we have to perform at a level that is much higher than what is expected of men in general. So yes, we are in a society that's a bit dysfunctional, and hopefully as things progress, things will start slowly but surely actually find balance. But that guilt comes actually more from the way that we were raised, the kind of example that we got from our maternal caregivers, the kind of messages that was told to us, like how does a girl have to do it. It's all about gendered education or gendered raising our children. I personally grew up in a household where there was a saying, you're the daughter of the house, and therefore I had to perform certain tasks. And it kind of, I personally struggled with anxiety if I didn't, like we have an arrangement in our house. I cook, husband does the dishes, and then I go sit down and I relax, and then I hear him do the dishes, and immediately I'm anxious because I'm relaxing and he's busy working, because we were not raised to believe that as a woman you have the right, or as a female partner in a relationship, you have the right to actually take a break. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to pause your day and say, I'm done for now. I am allowed to take a break. And that adds to the guilt. And that is one of the big things when I talk about parenting the parent. That is one of the big things that we focus on, parenting guilt. On how do I go override the messages that I was raised with. The foundation of the messages that how we view the world is actually almost completely completed until at the age of 7, maybe 8.
Wow.
And from there on, we function with that information to the outside world. And so how do I override that 7 years? How do I change that script? And one of the main course, my biggest course that I offer, we actually focus, like for 4 hours, we actually focus on, let's override that script. Let's go look where you feel guilty. Why do you parent the way you do? Why do you have knee-jerk reactions to certain things? Why are you saying no to certain things? You're not asking, why are you cooking the borscht the way you do? So yes. That is basically, and that guilt comes from, I'm changing the way that I'm doing things. And it also it taught us about power dynamics. Guilt lies a lot in fear. And if I know exactly what fear triggers the way that we respond to things, it is a data point, but we sometimes allow that to trigger. Why do I feel guilty? It's because I'm scared I'm failing. I'm feeling guilty because I'm scared I'm disappointing someone. So if I can actually pinpoint those things, I can start addressing the guilt and actually be honest with myself and ask myself the question, me sitting down while my husband's doing dishes, why am I scared? I'm scared that he feels that I'm lazy. But we have an arrangement and he's an equal partner. He's not a child in my house. There's no, yes, we have a dynamic. We're a married couple, but he's not the boss of me and I'm not the boss of him. We're equal partners in this relationship and everybody has to do their part. And if he waited until 10 o'clock at night to do the dishes, that was his choice and he has to take accountability and responsibility for that. The same way that if I wait until 4:30 to cook dinner that has to be on the table at 5 and I'm all rushed and overworked, like completely stressed out, he's not walking around with guilt. Because it was my responsibility and that accountability. And that actually helps settle down that guilty feelings and place the information, the data points, emotional data points at the right door and at the right space where it's supposed to
So,
be.
so it sounds to me as though you're working with parents almost more than you're working with the kids themselves.
I work with parents, them specifically because they are the people that's raising the kids. I every now and again I may step in where a parent asks me help me to handle this situation, and I might deal with the child themselves. But in general, my job is to work with the parents. They need to, if a bus drives over me and they can't reach me ever again, they need to be able to parent in a conscious, calm, gentle way without needing me to be their backup. And that is what I believe. I need to empower them so that I don't become a crutch. I just become information, another information point for them that they can function within raising their kids.
I really love what you're saying. It makes so much sense. There weren't these kinds of coaches around many years ago, and I can see how this kind of coaching would be really beneficial to parents everywhere.
I believe it is, and honestly, the parents that I've worked with all rant and rave and say they're really happy, and they do have the benefit that they have my cell phone number. So every now and again, I will get a WhatsApp and say, okay, this happened, help me through this.
Okay.
When they personally do struggle, and that is one of the reasons I actually created a club where parents actually pay a monthly fee and they get additional videos and stuff, and I will share information about that a bit later. But in that club, I'm like literally their personal coach. They pay me a monthly fee, and even if it's at 2 o'clock at night, if they can wake me up at that time, if I'm not still working at that time, they can send me a message and say, listen, yeah, this happened. How do I parent this? How do I angle this from a gentle perspective? How do I reach my child that we have a healthy relationship? And we spitball around and they try out different tactics or techniques and find the one that works best for their family and their child, because not every child is the same. Not every parent walks through the same history of upbringing regarding discipline or how to raise a child, what is moral values, what is those kind of networks. So the courses are quite broad, very small intimate classes, so that we can pause mid-course and say, okay guys, let's focus on each family as well and personalize some of the information that you've got, so that I can know that when we finish this, you don't walk out of this course and say, okay, now I've done it, so what?
Yes.
I want you to be able to practice what you've been taught and give me feedback and say, okay, this didn't work for this kid of mine. And then I can say, okay, well, all right, then that means this, this, and this. We've probably misdiagnosed this, and then we work from there. So it is a fun job. I really love my job. So, and it's puzzles and it's people, and it just makes me happy.
Your passion clearly shines through. So tell us, what are the tools that parents really need in this modern world to deal with kids, especially around technology?
Okay, so let's focus on technology first, and then I'll go to the more general. With technology, we need to understand what it is, besides what the science says, what the impact of the blue screen and the dopamine releases of the games that they play and all of that. We need to take that into account. But we also live in a world that if a child does not have access to technology, they are literally being left behind. And it is finding an age-appropriate balance. You cannot put a 2-year-old for 20 hours a day on technology or in front of the screen. I know it is a survival tool. I still don't know how my parents and their parents raised kids without it, the one-eyed nanny. Because every now and then, I personally, I go and say, okay, guys, just go watch TV. I just need to finish what I'm busy with now. I'll be with you now. Just to send them somewhere, especially when they are really, really in a space where they are beyond bored, they have played with the imagination, and they've just reached the end of, okay, I need something to do now. And then they want to participate in things that they cannot participate, so then the one-eyed nanny comes out. But it has to be age appropriate. So taking into account what is it that they do with that screen time. It soothes the mommy guilt, the guilt that we spoke about before, if you show them educational programs. But in the end of the day, we need to place it according to certain rules with access to technology. Kid under the age of 7, remember, their brains are not capable to differentiate between reality and fiction. So for them, they can truly go to Mickey Mouse's playhouse and go and play with Mickey Mouse. It is a reality for them. So what kind of shows are they allowed to watch? It is, I can read a book that is marginally has more conflict in it, because then they use their own imagination. I can read a book like that for them, but I cannot necessarily let them watch it on the TV, because the TV or the screen has a different impact on the brain and how they perceive those images. So they will start copying certain behaviors. So, and do I want those behaviors in my house? If the answer is no, my kids are not allowed to watch that. So we keep that balance. But then we slowly but surely also have maybe 30 minutes a day of screen time, in the sense where they sit and they get to solve puzzles on iPad or a tablet. They might sit and they do, instead of handwriting out things, they get a chance to type out things on the keyboard, so they get used to using the mechanics of a computer. So there's benefits, but we should always make sure that it always remains in a healthy way. Also, some kids can literally watch a screen and fall asleep and be fine. Some kids completely get so wired up they need 3 hours to unwind from screen time before you can even get them into a sleep or a night routine. So you're going to have to check your kids, and you have to look what works for your household. How long is long enough, and how long is too much? There is quite varieties, different schools of thought. There is families that completely raise their kids without screen time, and I wish we were a family like that, but we're not. And the reality is, those who raise kids without screens are few and far between. The majority of us struggle with how much is too much. Now, on average, 20 minutes for basically 10 minutes for every year. That is what I personally work about, and that is roundabout what I dragged out of some of the information and stuff that I've read up on it. And when it's done, it's done. The tantrums that comes, and I know that's one of the biggest pet peeves of parents, is like the moment we switch off the screen, it is meltdown city. That means your kid is getting the exposure to screen is for too long. So one of the tricks that some parents can do is check how long it takes your tablet with active play to run out of battery. And for instance, from 20% or 30%, and you only charge or give them when the tablet is charged up to that point, so that when the battery runs out, it's done. And that's one way of doing it.
That's very sneaky.
It is sneaky, but especially when they're 3 or 4 years old and they still don't really have a concept of time. Telling them you only have 20 minutes or you only have 30 minutes really makes it difficult for them to comprehend. But when you give them things that actually is tangible for them, like the tablet running out of battery power, it actually works. In our home, they have an hour of TV time that they can watch TV. And that boils down to 3 episodes of their favorite shows. Depending, obviously, the length. The average kiddie show is about 20-23 minutes. So, and then the rule is, okay, so the one gets to pick, the other one gets to pick, and then we have an adult pick, or they take turns they choose together the third episode, whichever. But when that episode's done, the TV gets switched off. And it helps them also to take accountability, responsibility out of their own on when it is done. And we keep on just reinforcing that, like, you get so many episodes, so many picks, that's it. If you pick a movie, when the movie is done, the TV goes off, then you guys need to agree both on the same movie, because there's not going to be you pick a movie and the other one picks a movie. It is one movie and then it's done. So it is building in concrete ways for them to start comprehending and being consistent with that. And being okay with a child crying. I think that is one of the big things that triggers our fear and our guilt, is a child crying. And children are not by nature manipulative. And I know we need to think about crying a bit differently. When a child cries, it's not that they're trying to manipulate you. They're expressing their emotional data point, and which is an emotional data point of I'm upset. Whether it's anger, doesn't matter what negative emotion it is a data point that they're giving and saying, I'm upset. Now, can you imagine if every single time that you tell your boyfriend or your partner or your boss or anybody, I'm upset, and then they say, oh, you're trying to manipulate me. What kind of relationship are you going to have? Where you expect to be heard when you want to express your grievance. Children don't have the brain development, their brain is not mature enough to when that emotion, that negative emotion kicks in, because there's lots of physiological things that happens to their body, and they actually literally go to the fight or flight center of the brain while they're experiencing that negative emotion. They can't really think logically. They really struggle. Think about how you struggle to communicate when you're upset, because that is physiologically what happens with your body. You don't have control over that. So them crying is expressing that they're upset. So instead of seeing it as manipulation, see it as, okay, you're upset. I'm okay with you being upset. I'm here, you're here. Work through your emotions, and then we can talk about what has upset you. Am I going to move my boundary because you told me you're upset? Nope. Yes. I will have a conversation with you. If you give me information that informs me that my boundary is wrong and I agree with you, then we can renegotiate the boundary. But you just crying is you being upset. And when someone cries, you comfort them. You don't punish them. And looking from it from that perspective, they are trying to negotiate the world. They're not trying to manipulate the world.
Those are some really useful insights. Thank you. Now, do you mostly work with parents of smaller children, or do you work with parents with teenagers also?
I have been coaching now for just over 2 years, and mostly currently the group of people are like almost fall in the under 7 group.
Okay.
I have coached parents of teenagers, but about 2 or 3 families regarding that. The core group of people that I'm coaching at the moment is parents trying to get the ropes, getting the hang of parenting. And once they get the hang, if parents are caught within that first 7 years of a child's development, it actually sets them up to have a successful relationship during the teenage years, and you actually have very little struggles during the teenage years. It doesn't mean the teenage years is going to be a breeze, but you've made the right investment to have the right kind of relationship during the really tough stages for the kids and the parents. I am working on a workshop. I'm actually working on 2 workshops, finalizing my 7 to 9s, 10-year-olds, and then my teenage workshop. I have not had an opportunity, thanks COVID, to do my self-esteem course with teenage girls, where I actually work with the kids and my emotion, like learning what is emotions and feelings for the primary school kids. It would have rolled out in 2020. We will then do it now in 2021. Have to find a way to do this online. But those kind of things are in the works. But my primary focus has always been catching parents in that first 8 years, 7, 8 years of a child's life, and setting them up in a position where they can actually parent in a way that is supportive and supportive of a nurturing relationship with their kids, while the kids are learning how to navigate life.
Wow, you've given me a lot to think about, and I don't even have children.
So you're child free.
I'm still trying to raise my inner child.
Sometimes no, my inner child is usually the one that gets me into trouble, so
me too.
I use my inner child to play with my kids, you see. And that is one of the reasons why my husband actually once looked at me and said, you know what, one day when we actually have to get rid of this house, we're going to have to explain to them that the mud on the outside wall was not the kids. And then I like very innocently.
That's cute. That's cute.
I had to explain to them that mud can fly. So.
I love it. So what do you enjoy the most about your job?
Seeing parents succeed. getting those messages where parents says, you know what, I tried this and it worked, thank you. Um, and also seeing parents finally believing in themselves, stripping themselves of that constant worry of, am I a bad parent? Am I a failing parent? I think that is my greatest joy, is to empower people and actually see them stand up in their power and their own agency, and raising kids that will change the future. And I'm excited to see that. So that
Mm,
makes me excited.
mm, mm. Your passion shines through. Um, from where I'm sitting, I think you're going to be very, very busy.
I hope so. I hope so.
There are a lot of parents out there who could really benefit from the things that you teach. So,
I hope so.
so you mentioned earlier that you have a YouTube channel. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. Okay. So I've got this YouTube channel. I started. Thank you, lockdown, for giving me the opportunity to do that. So not everything COVID related was bad. I started this channel earlier this year. It's under the name C3 Parenting, and what I do is I do parenting tips. I share some of my parenting bloopers. It's a bit more of getting to know me personally channel, but also workshops that I've done online for people, that was like either on Facebook groups or even on the channel itself.
Mm,
There's videos of that, and it's basically a parenting journey and talking about actual easy to connect with tips. Like some videos are quite short, some videos are 20, 30, 40 minutes long, depending on the information that needs to come across. But there's tips and tricks and age related. And one of the videos that I honestly feel that all parents, no matter how old their children is, need to watch, is the two videos about tantrums and how to parent tantrums.
mm,
The one explains the biology of a tantrum, and the other one actually talks about how do we engage with tantrums without repeating the mistakes of the past,
mm.
and having that conversation with parents. So that is basically what you can find on the channel, like just parenting related stuff. That's if I have to give it the short answer.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to go watch that your episode on tantrums, because when I was a kid, my little brother used to have them periodically, and I'd be curious to understand what was behind it.
No, it was quite, it's diving into the neurology of development of children really is like, oh man, if all the parents only knew this, it would be so much easier for them to relate to their kids. And
Mm,
that is some of the stuff that I put out on the channel. And then some of the videos on the channel will touch on some of the things that I deep dive into in the courses and the workshops and
mm,
things that I do offer. But the channel is there so that parents actually have easy access. In South Africa, we have a huge lack of South African resources for gentle discipline.
mm,
We live in a country the laws is you have to apply gentle discipline to your child, but none of
mm,
the, or not none, but very few parents have the tools and the skills. And I think that is where my heart started also with the YouTube channel, is to make it easier and like more accessible for parents to get those tools without necessarily having to pay a hefty price for some basic tools to add to their tool belt while they are on this parenting journey. And that was one of the hearts or the heart points of how the channel started, was
mm,
giving that opportunity. We live in an extremely financially and economically unequal society.
mm,
My courses puts me in I try to actually keep my prices way below market price, and the main reason for that is I wanted, once again, the accessibility of that. But we have, how many parents can't even afford the amount of money that needs to pay to do a workshop or course with me? And
mm,
so with the channel, I know data also is once again a thing of privilege. Not everybody can even afford data, but at least somewhere some of the resources then becomes available to no matter which economic class people are living in this
mm,
country.
mm.
And I want to see parents flourish.
I'm pretty certain it's also kind of a case of the people who need the information the most are the ones who can least afford it.
A
Mm,
lot of times, but unfortunately there is also a situation of ostrich that a lot of us pull when with our kids. um, we do. We believe our kids are perfect, and we believe that we are the perfect parents, and because we've never had, or very few of us have had, an example of parents owning their own mistakes and owning up and say, and not that whole thing of, okay, so I'm the authority and you will listen. Very few of us grew up in a household where that was not the dynamic. And so we kind of hold on to that, but I need to show that I'm the parent and I'm in authority. And how dare you tell me how to raise my kid? And it is all defense mechanisms, because we are extremely unsure. In our parenting journey, no parent can tell you ever, oh no, I'm 100% sure at all times what I do with my kids. Nobody can do that, not even I can. And for crying out loud, I'm a coach. I mess up royally often. It is a personal journey. It is a life journey. That whole idea of there's so many layers that needs to be broken through before parents really reach a point and say, maybe I can change a few things that I'm doing, and allowing that in. And it is a difficult journey for a parent if they've never had that example of someone in a position of authority and power to say, maybe I've been wrong, let me go find more information. Very few parents have been raised with that example, and it's a real emotional, deep struggle. And I've got loads of compassion for that journey. And I want to make it clear, I'm not judging any parent that says my child, my rules, or anything like that. That is, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand the journey that you're on. It is not easy, but if you ever reach a point where you want to go and say, you know what, maybe I can change a few things, go visit the channel. Go see what works for your family.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking kind of about my own family that I grew up in. We were many kids. My parents couldn't afford to say they were wrong because they were outnumbered.
My parents were outnumbered. We were 4 kids, so my parents were also outnumbered. But I think it's just their generation.
Yes.
It's that generation after generation of doing things just a certain way. You can be as outnumbered as then no teacher will ever be able to teach a child in a classroom, because teachers are always outnumbered. It is about, how do I find connection with my kid and help them learn the life lesson they're supposed to learn, while first of all building them morally and their self-worth, to give them value, and then for them to be able to live it towards the outside world. What is it that I want? Am I teaching it to them in a way that makes them scared, so that I can keep them under my thumb? Or do I teach it in a way that I don't have to police them, so that they will police themselves? And that is one of the significant differences between gentle discipline and corporal punishment, or mainstream discipline. Is the gentle discipline, our kids may take maybe a couple of times a little bit longer to get the grips of a certain rule, certain boundary, like really like be okay with it. But once that penny drops, I don't have to police my child. I don't have to threaten and fight, and they know this is why we do it, and they just do it. I don't have to give them even a weird look in public, because my kids are not angels. They have their tough days and they have their difficult days just like I do. But there's a significant difference in how they engage with the world in comparison to when I was young, and how I engaged with the world. I always kept looking over my shoulder who's watching, and then I would do whatever I want to do.
Yes.
And we see it now within society with the adults. Adults stick to the rules if they know that there's a traffic cop up on the road. They will drive the speed limit. They'll make sure they're buckled up, because they don't want to get a fine. They don't want to be punished.
Yes.
So that internal compass that says, you know what, staying within the boundaries is the healthy, safe way, is just not there. And it shifts it, yeah.
You've given me a lot to think about today. Thank you.
Huge pleasure.
So
a mini workshop for you.
Absolutely. I learn from every single one of these interviews that I do. It's amazing. I didn't know I needed parenting skills because I don't have a child, and you've given me some real valuable life lessons that I think as an adult I can use. So thank you.
It's a huge pleasure.
So if anybody would like to connect with you, where can they find you online?
All right, so YouTube, obviously we spoke about the channel. I am on Insta. I'm really bad with social media, so please forgive me. But Insta will like have 3 or 4 or 5 days like regular updates, and then maybe a week's silence. I'm sorry about that. Life happens, and I'm okay. I'm a child of my age. Social media, and I'm giving away my age. Social media, and I still struggle to get the whole idea of I have to share every single day. So
Yes.
there's that. Then you can get me on Facebook also, C3 Parenting, or under my name, Karien Pitout. And there will be a link to my page. And then I've got a website, www.c3parenting.com. And I'm on Twitter as well, at C3 Parenting. And I'm on LinkedIn as well, Karien Pitout or C3 Parenting page. And that is my socials.
Okay, that's fantastic. I will put all of your links into the descriptions with this video for people who are watching. If you didn't catch that, yes, then read the description that I've typed out below. You'll find all her info there. Karien, thank you so much for a really, really insightful interview today. I appreciate it so very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Melanie. I had fun. I really had fun. So
Yay.
thank you very much.
It's a huge
And
pleasure.
guys, if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to her channel.
Thank you, because I always forget to say that. That's awesome. Have a beautiful day.
My pleasure. You too. Have a good one.